of, I would say we had the Republican mindset or evangelicals. Later on, we said that is not enough. We furthered our step to actually look onto another perspective or the other theory or the other philosophy or the other ideology, which is actually to the right wing of the political spectrum. And that was actually a libertarian theology. In our meeting then, we actually labored much to understand, to say what are the libertarians and what do they stand for, and what is actually their ethos and everything. And we actually compared them with Republicans, as we are also trying to actually compare them with our view as God's movement or as God's political party. Yeah, because we had Republicans as political party, Libertarians as political party, and then we actually tried to come close to libertarian, comparing ourselves with libertarian mindset, and then trying to understand our political party, comparing it with libertarians. And we actually saw that when we talk of libertarians and how they relate with these ideologies, which is freedom and equality, we actually saw that with whatever they stand for, them, they are actually for absolute freedom, which is total freedom, with whatsoever, as long as equality actually, they perceive each other a threat, because one thing they stand for is they actually resist restrictions. They don't want restriction at all. This is the reason why we actually saw that we gave different examples to understand their view or the step they can take if they were actually bring, like when equality and the freedom comes into tension. Yeah. And after that, yeah, we actually saw that we gave different examples of which we saw that when you talk of a libertarian, they approves everyone. As long as their freedom is protected, they are all well. And this is the reason why we actually saw that regardless of them championing freedom, there is also a component of discrimination in the freedom they prioritize. This is the reason why we actually saw the differences. So when you talk of Civil Rights Act, they fight against that because they see it as actually to do with imposing certain restriction on individual freedom, and that is actually a threat to their freedom. And we actually saw that whatever deals with whatever comes as a threat to their freedom, libertarians fight that. Yeah, but we are actually furthering that concept, because we know to say we are edging, or we are actually understanding. We are in this period when we are trying to understand what is the Sunday Law about, who is going to bring the Sunday Law, and how is it going to be formed, and how is it going to come. And all those questions are the things that we should actually focus. But in order for us to answer all those questions, this is why we are trying to understand this actual political spectrum, especially understanding the right wing, because we know to say, for whatever reason, the Sunday Law is going to come from this side of the political spectrum. Yeah. From there, last week, we furthered our understanding to say, when you talk of this concept of the new issue or the crisis which awaits us, we moved from understanding to say we have only libertarians, which is as a philosophy, but we went further to understand to say what other things, like what governs, yeah, the right wing or the far right trinity. Yeah, and then we actually mentioned the far right trinity because we want to understand to say it is not only Republicans who are on this side of the political spectrum. We have actually other concepts or other political parties or other philosophers which champions their ideologies. Yeah, regardless, they might be termed as different on the face value, but we know to say with the mindset or their worldview, it is actually one. And we have a lot of examples which we cited in order for us to prove that point, where we actually see that they actually, when you talk of the common thing that they all don't want is just the issue of a threat to their freedom. And at all costs, if they actually perceive a threat to their freedom, they actually fight. Yeah. So from there, we actually said, I'll actually erase a bit of this and then I'll put them on top. So just to say, this is actually equality over freedom, symbolized by E over F. And also here, I would say freedom over equality. Yeah, and then here, we actually said in our last meeting to say we have actually, I want someone to give me the groups or of the three, which is the Trinity of the far right, which we mentioned in our last Sabbath meeting. I'm sure every one of us, both those online and those here, you had that opportunity to attend to last Sabbath's meeting, of which it was titled the Far Right Trinity. So what we are trying to understand is understanding the Trinity of the far right. So I want someone to give me that Trinity, which we learned or which we looked at last Sabbath. Anyone? Albert? Yes, those online, you are free to participate, and those here. Yeah, I'm sure we learned about the Trinity, the far right Trinity last Sabbath. And I just want someone to actually mention that Trinity, the far right Trinity.
This is Kaisa.
Someone is talking?
Yes, Kaisa.
Okay, Kaisa, you are welcome. Yeah, you can say what you want to say.
Libertarians.
So
And
we looked at, yes, we looked at libertarian. So we have the far right Trinity, we had libertarian.
then
Yes, libertarian.
men's right activists.
Men's
Right.
right
Activist.
activist or activism, yeah, whatsoever. Yes, which is its initial is MRA. Yeah. What
The last
else,
one.
guys? Can you give us the last one? Or someone
Atheism.
else? What?
Atheism.
Okay, we have atheism. It is atheism. This is atheism. So this is the far right Trinity which we looked at. Yeah, which is libertarians, men's rights activists, and atheism. Yeah. So one thing that we are trying to understand is we have the Sunday law ahead of us. And God, yeah, through his providence, he wants to make it clear so that we can have a clear understanding of how this Sunday law is going to look like. Not only that, the people are actually going to champion that Sunday law concept. Yeah. And this is why, if we have actually been following well and understanding how the steps which we've been taking in understanding this side of the political spectrum, I would say at first, yeah, at first we focused much on, I would say, when you talk of moral majority, we are trying to look on the evangelicals, not so. Yeah, I'm sure those are evangelicals. So at first we looked at evangelicals. Secondly, Republican Party. Republican Party. Yeah. And then thirdly, we looked at libertarians. And then which is fourth, we have the Trinity. Yeah. And then we'll actually move further. Yeah. So, and if this is the case, we know to say what we are trying to understand is the prayers who are involved in this Sunday law, which is actually happening. And you can actually see that when we talk of the Sunday law, we would say, if these are groups here, the groups from the right wing, if these are groups, we would actually say, here, I would say here, this is just a part. We have this part, and this part would say that's where would say Protestants pause. So we have Protestants pause under this position of the right wing. And then the issue is if Protestants or evangelicals falls under here, or to say even Republican Party, meaning there are other things I would say Republicans or evangelicals is just a component or a part of the big thing which is actually happening to the right wing. Or I would actually say Republicans and the evangelicals, they are just a part or a component of the story, of the whole story which is to the right wing. Meaning, if you want to understand the Sunday law or something ahead of us, just focusing on the evangelicals alone won't actually make you understand what is going to happen, even when you talk of the Sunday law. Yeah, I'm citing the Sunday law because that's the thing that we are familiar of, and that is I would say the great controversy majority of us knows, which is ahead, but we are in that history already. So we want to understand to say when we talk of the Sunday law, evangelicals, they are prayers of that, but that is not the whole thing. Meaning, if you actually say, no, I want to understand the Sunday law, and then you just take this concept to say, let me understand it, evangelicals or Republicans, you actually miss the concept, because besides Republicans or okay, yeah, I've seen there's a question to say what actually makes the Republicans for, do you mean under right wing or where I've marked?
Hello, it's Protestants where you have marked.
Okay, Protestants. Okay, thank you. So we understand to say, the question is, let me read it again. Yeah, it's actually, the question is, what makes the Protestants fall under, yeah, what makes the Protestants fall under, meaning, I'm reading, let me finish it. Fall under the category of the right wing. What makes Protestants fall under the category of the right wing? Yes. So that's the question.
Hello? Not really
Yes,
the
Russell.
right wing, but you have not put them to the far. They're actually closer to the center.
Okay.
So
So I'm sure that's the that's why I
yes,
asked to say, do you mean where I've pressed them here or because
yes,
I
where you have
getting RW.
placed them.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure now the question is clear. Why do Protestants fall under here, not to the far right? I'm sure that's the question, not so.
Yes, that's the
Th-
question.
Thank you. Yeah, Regina, you have got an answer to that question? Regina is saying they are here because they are not extremes. Yeah, so that is Regina. Others, what are you saying? Why do Protestants fall under this category here of the right wing instead of them being pressed to the far end or to them being on the extremists here at the far end of the political spectrum of the right wing? Online, do we have anyone with an answer before I can come in, or here, apart from the one Regina's given? Okay, I'm sure, yeah, with the answer Regina's given, let me actually also add my thought. Yeah. Yeah, we know to say, we have been trying to understand when you talk of, Regina's used the term to say they are not extremists. Yeah, and we are actually, we know to say when you talk of the governing ethos of the right wing, we have actually termed to say it's freedom. So the reason why Protestants, they can't actually fall under the far right is because in whatsoever they actually, their ideologies, which they stand for, I'm sure there is, I would say, if we go back and I'll use the mindset of Republicans, because when you talk of Republicans, they actually don't differ much with like Protestants. Yeah, when we looked, yeah, I will actually use that concept so that we can actually understand that. Yeah, when we looked at Republicans, when we are trying to compare them with libertarians, there was a concept which we said when you look on the two, the freedom which Republicans promotes, it is not actually a freedom of, I would say, 100% freedom, but we said with the freedom they promote, there's actually attached to it is actually morality. So you'd actually find that regardless, they would actually promote the concept of freedom, but I would say there is actually restriction attached to that freedom, because there are some people who are permitted to enjoy that freedom and others who are not. And that is actually the same with Protestants. Regardless, they would actually fight things on this religious freedom and the like. But you know, to say all that concept they actually champion, there is actual limitation on actually how far that freedom actually goes. This is the reason they are not qualified to go to the far right, because there is that limitation in the freedom they actually champion. I'm sure that's what I can say. I don't know from the person who asked the question if that makes sense. Yeah, if there is anyone to contribute before the questionnaire comes in, you are at liberty to do so. Yeah, but to the questionnaire, is it clear? I'm sure that's what I can say.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
Sure. So, yeah, that is actually why we actually see Protestants actually being pressed here, because when you actually bring them here, you'd actually see that their mindset, they are not actually allowing everyone or permitting everyone to enjoy that freedom they want. There will be that issue of, no, you can do this, and that freedom is applied to this individual, not actually everyone. Yeah, so that is actually the concept. Yeah, and I've actually mentioned Republicans here, Protestants, and then when we actually not to say, before the 2018 came, we not to say, as a God's political party, we also force here as God's political party. Yeah, we fall here. And this is the reason why God actually wanted us to say, standing here with the people who are actually going to champion the Sunday law crisis, yet you are actually saying the Sunday law is coming. The Sunday law will come, and then you find that the ideologies which you are championing, they are actually the same concept. which actually evangelicals or Protestants, they are championing. When you talk of the Sunday law, you go to the Adventist world view or the Adventist view of the Sunday law. What they are afraid of is actually individual freedom of worship being threatened. This is the reason why they say when the Sunday law comes, by all means, we are going to preserve our freedom of keeping the what? The Sabbath, because they know to say when the Sunday law comes, it is going to threaten their freedom of actually keeping the Sabbath. This is the reason why they are not actually different with the evangelicals, because even them, they have got the same mindset. This is the reason why, if you can go back in history, of which when I say history, I mean the studies that we've been studying, when we are trying to understand the first and the second great awakenings, the history of Millerite, the history of USA, you understand those histories which we looked at a long time ago, understanding like when you talk of the fight which has been there in the American politics, making America, like those books which we read, like why the Constitution, why, yes, how the Constitution became Christian, the book Evangelicals, all that, it is actually something that if you trace that history, we actually see that the mindset of Protestants is not actually different with Adventism. This is the reason why the studies of Apis Bulls, they were important, because that study, which is the Apis Bull, it was actually showing the idolatry of conservative Adventism. To say, regardless, we have actually built this wall of separation from Protestants, and then we actually claim to say we are special from them. We are actually drinking from the same cup of wine. This is the reason why there was no difference between us and actually Protestants before the Midnight Cry message. It is because their world view and how we actually perceived and viewed the world, it was just the same. Not until the Midnight Cry message came and then started shedding the right to understand. So, oh, it's actually a dangerous position to actually stand here. Yeah. And from there now, we furthered our understanding to say, whether we have evangelicals and Republicans like standing here with us, then we said, as we are making shift, or as we are making this change, which is a political change, through the prophetic message, which was the tool which helped us actually to make that switch. We know to say we should be very careful to understand to say, as we are making this switch, you might be thinking you are actually moving forward when you are actually going backward. Yeah. And this is actually the danger which was here. This is the reason why God actually taught us a lot to understand to say, even when we're making this switch, first try and understand what this side of political spectrum stand for and what is their ideology and everything. So that even when you are making a switch, you come this side, of which, of course, you know to say when you come this side, there is also a labor of sifting and the like, of which that is actually going to be looked at in the future studies. We know to say even when you make a switch, it is not as easy as you think. It is also more complex, because even when you switch to this side, there's a work which needs to be done. The issue of actually knowing to say, even when you come here, there's still a danger of actually not falling into a ditch of actually being long on the end time events. So you have to be careful even when you make that switch, of which that is not my concern with this stand. Yeah. So we are progressing. Yeah. We later actually furthered our thoughts to say, when you talk of these examples which we gave, like the Masterpiece Cake Shop and other like immigrants, our view on those people, gay marriage or gay couple, we actually tried to compare God's political party with a libertarian. And then we actually saw that when you talk of a libertarian view of how they take their freedom, it is actually, how to say, it stands in contrast to how we actually stand with equality. This is the reason why we actually saw that some of the people whom we gave as examples, you'd find that a libertarian approved everyone. when you talk of gun rights, they will actually give that excuse. But I'm sure with the studies which we said about self-defense and the like, we actually know our position on gun rights, which is actually the concept of the Second Amendment. Yeah. Where self-defense is concerned, those studies which the department that did. So you actually know to say, when you talk of gay marriage, for example, a libertarian will actually say they are just fine. And when you talk of God's political party, we are also going to say what? They are just okay. And if you are not careful to actually find yourself to the same side of a libertarian to say, these people, they are just like us, because what I'm saying and what they are saying is just the same. But we actually started to understand the motive behind their acceptance. And we actually saw that it is not actually that they accept or they agree with that marriage or so, but they actually believe or accept on the basis of freedom. This is why we developed the concept to say, I will defend to death, the rights of doing what you are doing, though I don't actually support what you are doing. So that is the concept of libertarians. Yeah. So that is actually the thought we had. So from evangelicals to libertarians, from libertarians to the far right Trinity, all this is something that is trying to actually help us to understand how broad this actually is, political spectrum is. It is not just is as evangelicals. It's not just is as Republicans. No, there is actually libertarians. On top of it, we have actually this Trinity. And whatsoever these stand for, we know to say they are actually at war with God's political party. This is why when we actually talk of God's political party and this political party or this philosophy or this ideology, we know to say they actually fight each other. I'm sure there will be a time when we actually go in detail, of which that can be done on a personal level. If you have time, you can actually try and study more on the far right Trinity, understand the concept of which builds this Trinity. And you actually understand to say it is not the concept which we actually stand for as God's political party. It's actually in contradiction with actually the ethos of God's political party. Yeah. So that is actually the case. And then we actually said on top of this Trinity, we actually also furthered our step to look on the far right militia groups, of which on those militia groups, we know to say, when you talk of all these militia groups, they are actually of them ideologies or their mind is actually from this Trinity of the far right. Yeah, because when you talk of the Pride Boys, the Proud Boys, the 33%, and then the Bagaros movement and all that, we know to say all those for the militia groups, their ideologies of philosophy, they are all built on this Trinity. This is the reason why we actually saw that not only did we study on that, we actually went on their social media platforms and the media they prefer using that. We actually looked on the Reddit and then the Reddit, and we studied that and then tried to understand how Reddit operates. Yeah, we actually saw that there are also subreddit, and those are communities under that. And we are trying to understand to say, what are the people who are mostly active on these platforms? And we actually saw that when you talk of the people who are active on those social media platforms like Reddit, yeah, which is just like any other social media platform, but this one is different because it involves not only personal, but it's actually focused on the society. They create community where they discuss issues, yeah, and they pose, yeah, different issues on which affects the society, and then people will actually take side on, have a view on those issues. And we actually saw that those social media platform like Reddit is actually mostly dominated by people with with this Trinity or with this ideology of the Trinity, which is some we actually saw that there is actually with the percentages which was shared according to the information, we actually saw that there is like 80+%. We actually see that those are actually libertarians who are on that platform, and then we have men right activists which actually also form a part of that social media platform. But the issues, what do they even discuss on those platforms? Yeah, we actually, so when you talk of men's rights activists, it's actually, how to say, it's in a opposite of feminism. Yeah, because with men's rights activists, their aim, like the name itself tells, they actually stand to promote and champion men's rights. And they fight whatsoever they see as a threat to men's rights. This is the reason why we went further to understand the Gamma Gate, of which I'm sure we had that article. I'm sure it was shared even in the Kitwe Start group by the Vox, which said the internet is full of men who hate feminism. We know to say all that which was read in that article, it is actually the mindset or the principles or the ideologies which actually these men's rights activists actually promotes, and they are actually misogynistic in nature because they actually undermine women. They actually, not to say, when you talk of feminism, yes, Russell. Maybe I should ask. Russell,
Gertrude.
are you recording?
I was recording, then I stopped because I'm doing a live stream. My network is bad.
Okay, Joseph was asking me, but I have told him to say you are recording because that's what I knew. But since you have stopped, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, there is no problem because the video will be on YouTube.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, that is actually, yeah, where was I? Okay, I was actually looking on Vox and then that article which we looked at, like the Gamma
Hello,
Gate.
George. Is Gertrude saying something? Because she's unmuting the mic time and again. You can ask if she's saying something.
Gertrude,
To ask something.
yes, go ahead, please. You can ask.
On the political spectrum, we said there are 2 or 3, the right, the left, then the centrist. Then as we go in detail, we'll find that like far right, far left, I mean, there are a lot of groups, not like what we used to say, maybe the Protestant, but what I can say, there are a lot of them. Now my question is, how do they work? Because they are libertarians, atheism, men's right, even the Protestant. And from what I'm learning is their ethos differs. Some they go for pure freedom, Some they have got limitations like the Protestants. But how do they work? We normally own this two there, the far right, okay, the left and the right, but they are and different, like ideologies okulingana limitation bafikapo when equality and freedom come into yeah. So how do they work? How do they harmonize things? They decide if it's work left or work right. Wow, there are a lot of groups involved there. How do they work? Like maybe if we talk of maybe in those 3 branches, I have amafunde. Who makes the law then? Our katuishe for Ngaran. Therefore, how do they harmonize bakwata chimwato ichi? Or like ukuwi nishanango ni Trump arefa ikati bonsa baba bakuside komao. So is this just a matter of compromise? Or how do they work? Since they believed in different yeah, katwishwa teacher. Ana mumpofonde.
Okay. Yeah. From the question, if you have gotten you right, you are asking to say, since on the political spectrum, we have actually mentioned to say we have the right and the left are on that, I would say on that prime level. Primary level, we have actually the left and the right because there is no me, like when you talk about, say you are either cold or hot, there is no Laodicean state. Yeah, so you are actually saying now when you talk of the right wing, we talk of the evangelicals, libertarians, the men's right and the atheism and others, atheists to others. How do they actually work when they have different ethos? Is that what you said, or is that your question?
Yes. Like I can give the example on the overturning of the Roe v. Wade. Or as there is it a Protestant or all those groups agreed? Why would they believe on different doctrine? But how do they work? Harmonize matoke. Is this
Okay, so if I've gotten your question correct and the examples you are giving now, are you saying like these groups which we have mentioned, people in charge of actually ruling those cases, like that is actually like a Supreme Court? Are they the people in charge of giving those rulings? I'm sure the answer is no. Yeah, so when you actually say you give the overturning of Roe v. Wade in connection with the groups we are mentioning here, I don't know, the connection there, but if I can further my thought, I can also understand you to say maybe you are talking of the people who actually overturned the Roe v. Wade, they have got the same mindset, the same mindset as these. I don't know if that's what you mean by your question to say the people who have attended the Roe v. Wade with these people or these groups we are mentioning here.
I don't know. Like if I look at the libertarians, their freedom, the pure one, like so now I was like wondering how, because if we talk about Protestants, they are not like them. Their freedom has got limitations and not everyone can enjoy that freedom. Yeah. So now I was all once left or right, I mean. So now I was wondering, like, then how do they harmonize things since once back left? Do they at some point come at Chimofe Bashta agree at nature or some will compromise or I don't know. Not I was just wondering of Babomba.
Okay. Maybe anyone who has got anything to respond to Gertrude's question can come in. I'm sure with me, I'll actually maybe I'll help her as we move forward with that question. But at the moment, I don't have an answer to that question. Yeah, those online, if there is anyone to help, you can actually help, or anyone here. But if
how do they work? They not work together and believe the same thing. They don't even support each other. So especially in the Wabomashana.
Mhm.
What unifies them is freedom, whether mathematically themselves, or whether our party, no,
Teacher,
So get this.
they combine with morality. The libertarian they also prioritize they don't combine. But maybe each of our part, exactly
Okay,
it's a freedom.
I can expand that.
Yes.
No, not expanding, amplifying what you've said.
That's why you should fire my
For me, I want you to have it. Okay, thank you. I had someone who's actually sharing the thought on that question. Yeah, and the thought was regardless, we actually see them, how to say, if you look at them like on the face value, would actually see them on the different levels with the level on like how far they actually champion that concept they stand for. Yeah, but when you talk of the area principle which we establish, which is we said here is equality, here is freedom. The governing ethos of the right wing is freedom. The governing ethos of the left wing is equality. So that is actually the thing that actually makes them all to be here. Yeah. And then not only that, you'd actually see that all of them, they actually stand on one thing. Regardless, there is other thing which is attached now when you actually zoom in, which is actually you go now on the complexity of the left, the right wing, looking on these groups. Regardless, they fall under the same side, but there is actually that complexities in what they stand for. But the underlying principle which everyone stands for here is actually freedom. So that was actually someone's comment on that question which Gertrude asked. So with that, I'm sure there is a bit of help coming from that comment. And if there is anyone with another thought, I'm sure we can actually hear from you. And if there is no, yeah, I'll proceed. But let me hear from those online if there's at all anyone with a different thought from the one I have had shared from someone here.
Even those on YouTube, you can ask them, they can type in WhatsApp group. They shouldn't just be quiet.
So yeah, those on YouTube, you should actually, if you at all you have any question, you actually send them in the, I'm sure in Kitwe WhatsApp group. Yeah, those who are there and those who are not there but you are on YouTube, try to actually share your concern with the people you are connected to so that we can actually have those thoughts shared. Yeah, so that we know. So those on YouTube, if you have any thoughts, you can share them on actually that's WhatsApp platform which I've shared, and then we actually share our thoughts together so that we see how we can actually help one another. Yeah. Is there anyone or I proceed? Okay. So quietness means two things. It's either people they have words but they can't speak. They have spoken in their heads already. It's only the mouth which has failed to open. And then the other thing is they don't have, so they have actually decided to be quiet. Anyway, that was just the thought. Yeah, but all in all, I'm sure we'll actually get to help out one another as we actually progress. So let us not forget that question which Gertrude has asked that. But with the comment which was made, I'm sure there is a help from that comment, but I'm sure it is not the all to that question which Gertrude asked. Yeah, so let us continue thinking as we are progressing so that we can actually see how we can actually help out on that question. Yeah, so from there, yeah, I'll actually now continue. Yeah, I was just giving this as a review, trying to understand the way we have actually traveled up to this far. Yeah, up to this far so that we can actually know where we are going, because it's more important. Yeah, if we can't connect the story, it will be very hard for us to understand it. Okay, it will be very hard for us to understand how we can actually connect the concept. The question, Patricia, Osi, we actually see these like when you talk of the right wing, we don't only have evangelicals, but we have other groups. Yeah, I would actually term that way, maybe for the sake of understanding. We have other groups, like we have libertarians, we have men's rights activists, and then we have atheists and all that. And if you look on them critically, you actually see that with the Republicans, they actually champion freedom attached with morality, libertarians total freedom, and so on. Meaning there is that difference in them, which we can actually see in what they champion, yes. But the issue is, how do they act, Audrey? How do they actually harmonize on issues in order for them to be found to the same side of the political spectrum? And what actually unify them, or what makes them to be one, when we can actually see those differences in them? I'm sure that was the question. Yeah, with the comment I posed, it was a comment from here. Someone gave the thought on that question. I'm sure if you have at all, you can also share yours. Yeah, it will be appreciated and welcomed if at all you have. I'm sure that's the question. Patricia. Okay. Let us proceed. Yeah, so from the Far-Right Trinity, yeah, we are now, the start of today, I'm sure, I mentioned earlier to say we are just doing the revision because it's something that we've studied at our own time. And here is just to share the concept of what we actually studied. This is a series of studies. This is like if you go in Adventism to say quartet, there is from Sunday up to Friday, and then you make conclusion. And then when you come together, is the matter of actually cementing on the thing that we never understood. So I expect everyone to be commenting and to be active, actually. Yeah. So today we are actually going to look on this subject titled from Gamma Gate. I'm sure this is it. From Gamma Gate to January 6th. So this is actually, the title of our study. Yeah, with the Vesper, I'm sure this is Vesper 8. Yeah, we looked on the 7th last Sabbath. So we concluded, and this is the first time for us to look on this one, but it is not the first time in the context that we've been looking on these studies. It was presented, I'm sure that was, is it 2022? Yeah, that is about 2 to 3 years ago. meaning it is things that we've been looked upon several times on our individual capacity and also as a political, meaning as a group. Yeah, so this is the title of our study, which is from Gamergate to January 6. Yeah, so in our last meeting, I mentioned the article which the presenter last Sabbath shared in those WhatsApp group, which was actually tackling this concept, which is Gamergate. Yeah, it was in that article by the Vox, which was the most concern or more, it focused much on actually men's mindset on women, like their misogynistic mindset and view on women and the like. Yeah, but you actually tied that with other concepts as we are going to look on it in detail. Yeah. So one thing that I want us to understand is when you talk of elections in the USA, for example, would actually say, since we are looking on the politics of America, and then we have elections in the USA, and then I stand as a candidate who wants to actually contest for elections in the USA. Yeah, but I'll actually use the figures of America, like presidential figures, who actually give Trump as an example. So when we have Trump here, and then Trump wants actually to do the campaign. Yeah. And then his campaign, he wants actually, not to say Trump falls under here, not so. We know Republicans as a party and they fall here. So when you talk of Trump, we attach him with the Republicans, meaning he's also here. And then since we have actually seen that when you talk of the right wing, we don't only have Republicans, no. We have other groups which falls under what? Right wing. And then we have Trump wants to win elections in USA. And then he's going to do a campaign. So now if he's going to do a campaign as Trump, we have elections, he wants to do the campaign. What do you think he's going to actually tell? Or what are the things that is going to tackle to convince this group here? Or what is he going to tell the people here in order for them to be convinced to actually get a vote from them? It's a question. From here, those on YouTube and those on Zoom, yeah. Is Trump campaigning? I would say maybe Trump will campaign for how many? I would say 2016. We put it just as a year. And then we have 2020. No, 2020. 2020. And then 2024. Yeah. So meaning we have 2016, but since you have mentioned that one, 2020 we see him going out of office. And then 2024 is coming back. So we use 2016 as our example because we know to say 2016 is actually a waymark also, and there's a lot, just like 2021, 2020, and also 2024. But this one is more complex. Yeah, like when you want to understand, like it's attached with the battles, like you understand the concept of King of the South and the like, of which that's not my area of interest now. So when you talk of 2016, we have Trump wants to actually win the elections, which is of that year. And then we have actually all this group of people here whom we should actually convince. So if you can actually put yourself in the shoes of Trump with what we've studied and what we are learning, and then you want actually to go and do a campaign, what should be the area of your focus in those campaigns you are going to do in order for you to get a vote from this kind of people? Yes.
Like that the thing to them. So what like
Get the mic. I don't know people today, they don't love mic. Joseph, hand off. So we have a speaker here, that is Regina.
So I was saying, saying the target area, we're looking at those people there on the road. So then I know what they.
Hello? We are not
Yes.
getting her.
Actually, they are not getting you. Try to speak now.
What now?
Is it fine now? You can get them?
She can say something.
Say something.
Something. No, they can't get.
Even now you can't hear.
No, but we are getting you. Isn't she using the mic?
But how come you are the one having the mic? They can't hear you.
Maybe you have not connected the mic. They are on the settings.
Maybe. I
Yes,
don't
it's
know. Maybe the mic is not.
you are using the laptop's mic.
I'm sure. Okay. I'm sure. I'm going to amplify what Regina is going to say.
No, it's fine.
Yeah. Give me. You can proceed.
Since the target area, which Trump, why he wants to take the vote of them. Those are men. Those who are looking at those libertarians. Yeah, we can say it's a combination, but the majority in the libertarians or the atheism or atheism, these are men who feel they've been what? Victimized, taken advantage of by the systems that have been overlooked. So they form this group to try and do an awakening.
Just come and sit here.
Okay.
Can you move your seat? No, it's fine. You just sit here and then you talk. No, even you can make that move. It's fine. I just want you to sit here, you talk, and then you go there. Yeah, no, just here. You just talk and then you go back. Yeah, you can now talk. You can talk.
I was saying the target area we're looking at, but that's not what we're saying. So the people that Trump wants to get support from, his target area, those are men who feel they've been victimized, they've been taken advantage of for so long. That's the reason they're forming those groups, so that they can write. So what is going to say that is going to attract the vote from these people is to assure them that once he comes in office, he's going to ensure that their rights, their freedom actually, if I'm to be specific, is going to be given to them. Where they've been looked out, where they've been left out, is going to ensure its position. He wants them to feel secure. You can even see his speech, how he talks about women and things like that. They see an ally, not just an ally, they see somebody who is of them, someone amongst them. So that is the reason you see, yeah, it's not just, yeah, we can say it's not just that he's pretending, it's also the mindset that he has. So it's going to reveal the real himself to them in the manner he's going to use their language.
You are done?
Yes, we finish.
Okay. I'm sure you have gotten what Regina said. So she said, if you actually look at Trump and how he's going to talk about, like when you talk of, is the, I would say the manifesto, which is going to be more appealing to, like she cited the example of men's right. She actually, since they have been victim, like they have put themselves as victim of these systems, they are oppressed and the like. So he's going to actually give the message on actually something that is appealing to them, and by so doing, they'll actually he is going to actually win their support because his mindset through those is going to align with them. And that is the same concept with when you talk of evangelicals. You know, it's not, I would say, okay, I'll give that example later. Yeah. When you talk of evangelicals, they love Trump, not so. And they actually see him as their savior. But when you actually try to understand everything that Trump stands for, or everything that Trump champions, you'd find that it's not everything that the Protestants will actually support. Regardless, they'll actually vote for him. But you'd actually find that some of the concepts or some of the things that Trump will be doing, they can't actually support that, but you still find them what? Supporting him. Yeah, like when you talk of abortion, you actually know to say they were happy like on that concept because they saw that as the win where preserving life is concerned and the like. But when you talk of other things that maybe Trump will be mad on blacks, women and the like, giving names and the like, if you come with Protestants, you'd find that they are not actually in support with that. But yet when you talk of voting, who are they going to vote for? Is Trump. So you'd find that Trump is not just representing this individual, like he's not just standing there as this Trump, he's actually is appealing to all the right wing. This is the reason why you'd find that there is a concept of all these groups of people in him. This is the reason why at this point his mindset is going to align with that of a libertarian. When you talk of America first, that is actually the principle of actual selfishness, which is freedom. Not so, yeah, you consider yourself, and that would be more appealing to actually libertarians. So you actually try to understand, so regardless, we have all these different groups which all falls under the right wing. There is that concept, there is that principle which actually every one of them, they are actually able to identify it. It is present in Trump. This is the reason why they actually vote for him. Regardless, there is other components which they can't actually support or which doesn't align with their ideology. But there is that part of Trump which is actually their vision of how things should actually go, especially where championing of their ideology is concerned. Yeah, I'm sure that's what I can actually say. You'd actually find that Trump is actually, since 2018 onward, we have tried more to actually understand like Trump and not only Trump as the individual, but Trumpism ideology, like what he stands for and why is so appealing to actually to these people on the right wing of the political spectrum. And you actually see that they have actually seen that he's actually the right person to actually champion their ideology, though not he can't actually do it according to their best because of, I would say, his mixed version of actually these groups, but he's actually the best person to actually champion their agendas. And this is the reason why if he goes there and do the campaign, you actually represent, in his representation, there will be actually every part of these groups will be represented because this one find a share in his ideology and the other group also. So that is actually Trump. So when you talk of women, we know how actually Trump is. When you talk of sexism, yeah, even to make matters worse, in 2016, he actually stood. He had actually someone who was actually contesting with him at the highest level, who was actually women. You actually know when you talk of Trump's sexuality abuse and all those, you actually know to say all that. I don't think if Protestants can support that behavior from Trump, they can't, but still they find a voice to their side in Trump and they actually vote for him. Yeah, so that is actually why you actually see that when you talk of this concept here, where we are actually talking of, we are edging toward the Sunday law, and you actually use Trump as the figure to actually bring that concept of the Sunday law. But we know to say it's actually all these people actually forms a part of that actual crisis. This is the reason why you actually find that once you actually try to understand to say, when you talk of the Sunday law, it is not just coming from evangelicals. There is other people who is actually forming a part of the Sunday law. Then it actually starts to actually draw out that mind we have to say, when you talk of the Sunday law, it is actually Protestants. And when you talk of SDAs having the view to say Protestant America will bring about the Sunday law, like it is stated in the Great Controversy, which is the 1888 history, you actually see that what they actually understand is the same concept of Sunday law, which is the Christendom. It is actually the same Sunday law which we are going to have when. Now, this is the reason why what they perceive as anything to do with the issue of the Sunday law is which group from here? Evangelicals, not so. Yeah, when you talk of the SJs, they know to say the Sunday law is going to come from this faction of the right wing. But we know to say it is more than that. And this is the reason why, if you want to say the Sunday law will be more Christianity, yeah, it is not going to be. Because, yes, there will be that component because we can actually see evangelicals here. But that is not the whole issue. Meaning the Sunday law which is going to come, it is more than actually something to do with Christianity. And I'm sure this is actually the concept we are actually now edging into, trying to actually now broaden that aspect or that concept to say, when you talk of the Sunday law, which is coming, if we can actually see all these forming the part of that Sunday law we are waiting, then we can actually know to say this Sunday law we are waiting is actually not actually just actually coming from evangelicals or Christians, Christianity as a problem. No, there is actually more to that. Meaning, if that's the case, we should actually have the clear understanding of the whole entirety, right wing, yeah, on the political spectrum, so that we can actually understand. So when the Sunday law comes, we should actually know to say, we are not just focusing on evangelicals. This is the reason why our focus since then has switched. I'm sure we have done a lot of studies focusing on evangelicals or Protestants, so to say, from those great awakenings, how it happens until we came to moral majority, understanding those histories, until to present when we are actually trying to understand the new Christian rights. All those studies focused much on Protestantism, but that is just the one perspective, understanding the Sunday law. But with these studies, it is actually helping us now to broaden our concept of actually understanding, or like what really constitutes, what are the components really about this Sunday law we are waiting. And at that point, we can actually see that when you talk of threat, it is not only evangelicals as we perceived, and this is the still mindset of our SDS, which is actually the mainstream. But we should actually also focus on this, especially that now we understand to say it is the central issue is about equality. And we actually have this like men's rights activist, which is actually there to oppose, yeah, all that I would say feminism concept, because they see feminism as a threat to their rights, which is men's right. Whenever feminism comes in, men's rights, they are actually threatened. Therefore, they need actually someone who can actually fight for their rights being represented. Yeah. And this is actually the case. Yeah. So we'll actually move along that concept. And so far, if there is anyone with a comment, you are at liberty. You know to say one thing that has make us to have this shallow understanding of the Sunday law is because of Apisbo. Yeah, the mindset of Protestantism, the mindset of Catholicism, because the mother of Protestants is Catholic, and then the mother of STAs is actually a Protestant, and our mother as a movement is actually STA. So there is that connection from where we come from. This is the reason why even our view of the Sunday law, we still add since then the very mindset of Adventism, like our religious freedom is threatened because of actually that view of the mainstream understanding about the Sunday law. So if there is anyone with a question, comment before I can proceed, you are welcome to do so, and then I'll actually move forward. Anyone online, those you on YouTube, yeah, you can share your comments like I said. And then those here, if at all you have, there is anyone here, Joseph, Albert. Yeah. So if there is anyone here, you can actually raise your concern, comment, question, and then we actually, yeah, move forward. So Patricia, John, Gertrude, Isule, and Russell, if at all there is any comment, you can comment, yeah, and then I can actually proceed if there is nothing at all, unless otherwise here. Albert, Sharoni, Regina, Joseph. Joseph. So, in addition to what we have actually looked at here, yeah, I want also to mention to say when we talk of these groups here and their understanding, like their view on equality, you know, to say they would actually say where there is equality, freedom doesn't exist. So meaning that's why if you say there is a freedom and then what you are championing is equality, meaning what you are killing there is what? There can only be equality if there is what? Freedom. This is the reason why, yeah, you'd actually see them getting mad on actually prioritizing freedom because they know to say in freedom they promote, behind it is actually equality. If people they are given freedom to do whatsoever they want without any restraint, like a libertarian, meaning that is actually their version of how they actually perceive equality should look like. Yeah. So it's actually a complicated thing. Yeah. Even when you talk of issues like to do with the court cases, because you know to say when you talk of Trump and then he wants to actually appeal with all these groups of people here. Not only that, when he gets elected and then he wants actually to champion, like we talk of the Roe v. Wade, which was overturned. Which part of the system should Trump focus on in order for the laws to be changed? Joseph, if you want to change the laws in the USA, we have Trump who is elected, and then he wants to make sure that now the laws which I would say maybe if there is a law which threatens the freedom of a libertarian, for example, or someone who falls under men's right, or someone who is a atheist. And then they want to do away with that system or that law, for example. Where should you touch in order for that concept to be successful?
The two branches.
Okay, so like Joseph has said, in order for you to achieve what you want in terms of actually removing the threat, you should actually focus on the legislature and Supreme Court. Yeah, but specifically not to say it is where it is under Supreme Court where we actually see the laws. Not so, like when you talk of Roe v. Wade, was it a legislature or Supreme Court, Joseph? Yeah, so you know to say, this is why, yeah, you know to say, it has all been, yeah, when you study the American politics, somehow it is complicated, especially that if you see it at the face value, you know to say only two political parties have dominated the politics of America, of which that is actually which party versus what? Democrats, yeah. And then Republicans versus Democrats, though there has been that switch in political stances and what they stand for. But you know to say it is hard, like if this political party comes in, they want their ideas or ideologies to actually be there in the system. And when those things start to happen, like changing laws, which is switching the policies or the principles of equality, that will actually pose a threat to Republicans. And when Republicans comes in, what happens? They'll undo everything that Democrats what? Implemented. This is the reason why it is actually a complicated situation. They would actually these things which Obama all did, all those things which was a great achievement. But when Donald Trump comes in, he has got his own version of actually how he wants America to look like based upon his mindset or ideology. As a result, there is something that looked as progressive in America, which when Trump comes in, is also going to bring his version of how that progressiveness of America should actually look like. So, yeah, that is actually the thing. And that has been actually the fight. This is the reason why when you talk of Trump comes in, Biden comes in, it is obvious issue of this one brings in his own ideologies, which is appealing to his way of understanding how America should be governed and how people should actually enjoy their individual rights and also state rights and so on. Yeah, and then also the other side also, it is actually the same concept. This is the reason why you would actually say there is a small government, big government, exclusive government, inclusive government. All that is the thing that has been happening over and over with Republicans and Democrats. Yeah. So to move, I'll actually give a brief, just a brief part of what we are discussing, and then later on we'll have a break of 5 minutes and then we'll come back to do the last part. Yeah. So I'll give actually, I want to look on this Gamergate, of which with those with phones, yeah, I want you to actually open. You can either go on the AI or you go on the Wikipedia or Google. Yeah, and then you just type, I just want you to type, you just type there Gamergate, and then you share with me the information you are going to get. Joseph? Yeah, you just type Gamergate. I don't know if you are using AI or you are in Google or Wikipedia, but someone, at least you should separate. Others should go with the Wikipedia, others with Google, others with AI, so that we get the concept from both. Yeah, we should get from AI, we should get from Wikipedia, and then others from AI or Google. So, Joseph, have you found something there? Where, and you should give us the source of what you are reading. Don't add anything, just let Gamergate and then say it.
Gamergate or Gamergate.
That is from where?
Mhm.
So Joseph is quoting from Wikipedia. Can you also come here? Yes, Joe, come here. Okay, just to squeeze a bit. I want people to be getting your voice, not me interpreting what you are saying. For the sake of time, just sit here. You read what is there. Just reading is not something complex. Unless if you ask to comment on what you're going to read. Yes, I've given you first.
Mhm.
Mic terrible. It is not working. Mic is not actually functioning. We are using the direct mouthpiece.
Gamergate was a loosely organized misogynistic online harassment campaign motivated by a right-wing backlash against feminism, diversity, and progressivism in video game culture. It was conducted using the hashtag Gamergate, primarily in 2014 and 2015. Gamergate targeted women in the video game industry, most notably feminist media critics Anita Sarkeesian and video game developer Zoe Quinn and Brianna Wu.
Okay. So that is actually from, you said Wikipedia? So Joseph actually read it. And from what Joseph has read, we have, to summarize what Joseph has said, we have read from Gamergate to say, it's actually a loosely organized misogynistic online harassment campaign motivated by a right-wing backlash against feminism, diversity, and progressiveness in video game culture. Yeah. And then it continues to say, it was conducted using the hashtag Gamergate primarily in 2014 and 2015. So we have Gamergate. I'm sure it's visible here. Gamergate. It was actually more active or propagated during this time period, which is, we have been given the periods, which is 2014 and what? And 2015. And that is important. Yeah, I'll come and look on that. And then they have said Gamergate targeted women in the video game industry, mostly notably feminist media critic, which is Anita Sarkeesian, and video game developers, yeah, and others. So one thing about this Gamergate is actually, would you say, a organized misogynistic online harassment targeted to undermine, I'll just say targeted to undermine feminism. When you talk of misogyny, I'm sure you've studied about misogyny. It's actually hatred against women, which is you actually undermine their ability and everything. And those who are feminists, they actually have the misogynistic mindset. because they ate women, and that is hate-led. When you talk of xenophobia, homophobia, the hate against women, that would actually term as what? Misogyny. Yeah, meaning hate-led against women and all that, or hate-led against feminism. So that is Wikipedia. I want to see someone from Google and from AI. Is there anyone online? Sorry? No, it's just the ratio of reading what you have worked and found. AI. Online, anyone who have actually found something on Gamergate, like here, what we have read, it is from Wikipedia. So if anyone there with AI who have actually found something with AI or Google, you can actually share. Sharon, anything there? That is AI. So Regina is reading, that is from AI.
Gamergate was a controversy that started in 2014.
Gamergate was the controversy which started in 2014. Primarily within the video game community. But you can just come here and yeah, just come here and then you read it up. So sit there for your.
It began as a dispute in ethics in video game journalism, but quickly escalated into broader debates about sexism, progressivism, and representation of women in gaming. Key aspects: 1, the initial controversy, allegation of bias and corruption in video game journalism. 2, expansion, discussions about sexism, misogyny, and harassment in the gaming industry. 3, harassment. Many women in the gaming industry, including developers and critics, face severe online harassment. Then the impact. Highlighted issues brought attention to problems like sexism and harassment in gaming. Polarization, that is, created division within the gaming community. 3, culture shift, contribution to ongoing conversations about diversity, representation, and inclusive, I'm sure, in gaming. Then the controversy remains a complex and multi-faceted topic with varying perspective on its cause, effect, and implications. Papa.
Okay. So that is actually AI. So there's I would actually say with AI and Wikipedia or Google, so you actually have the same concept, which is the key points which I want to note there is 1, we have this Gamergate, which is actually, would you say one is actually an online harassment campaign in the years which was mostly active, which is from 2014 and then 2015, and the target, it was actually which class of people? The target of their online campaign, it was based on like their titles on which gender. Is it gender? Yeah, it is women. That's why I never wanted to be specific. I asked to say on which class of people. Yeah. So it was actually the online harassment campaign, which is, this is an online misogynistic campaign. Yeah, and they actually focus on actually degrading women's ability, yeah, which is actually, like I said, misogyny. So we'll actually come and continue on this. Yeah, so let us say on this 5 minutes we have for break, try. Oh, no. No, I will finish with my thought. It will be finished next time. Yeah. So We'll come after 5 minutes. Let us just take a short break and then we'll actually proceed afterward. Yeah. Yeah, we are not actually ending the meeting. So you can move, you take water and then the like, and yeah, take some rest. You don't sleep. Don't sleep, just refresh yourself. You stretch yourself a bit and then you take water. Yeah, you come back. I know attending online sometimes is tiresome. If people here can doze, what of those on screen? Yeah, so have that time. Yeah, we are coming back at 20. Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hello. बताइए रंडी कैसा है? Mfikiro.
Joseph, wachita connect abiri.
Hello. Hello.
Ahí te Dando con sí, Juan, sí. Tiene su hoja de tena. Common, that's why we come from the triumph. Come, come, sure. Okay, yes. Hello? Então, bueno, next time, brother. Very nice, you are saying the same.
Moderator is present.
Everyone has gone. Yes. Yeah, go ahead. Para.
Please.
Those ministry that is
Oh, I think one year for you, it's not the.
look at the phone. It's connected. Okay, they take on the phone. Yeah. Una vez Dandano.
Hello? 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 Hello?
Hello.
So, hello. 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 The volume is too low. Okay. It's time up. Yeah, so we'll proceed, of which I'm sure I thought it would work for advantage for the break we had, but it has worked for disadvantage. Yeah, so next time we'll just cruise without having a short break. I thought it would work for our advantage, but I'm sure other people, they have gone for good. Yeah. So we were actually looking, Joseph, the meeting. What? Yeah, so we are actually looking on Gamergate, and what we are trying to understand is, don't forget about the concept we started developing on Trump. And we actually said if Trump wants to win elections, he needs actually to appeal to this group so that you can actually win that election. And we actually have 2016, which is the year of elections. So in order for him to win, he needs actually to actually have the concept or the mindset of these people. And part of the campaign which we actually saw in the 2016 elections, it was actually, to say this thing that we actually led in actually Gamergate. Yeah, not to say it actually started in 2014, and that is actually significant to notice. When we talk of Sandelo, we talk on the line of the priest. Sandelo is our Sandelo. 2014 is our Sandelo. And we know to say, it being the Sandelo, it's actually important to understand why Gamergate is actually found in that way. Yeah, it's actually something that is actually connected to this election year, which is 2016. But you can actually trace that history starting from where? 2014. This is the reason why, if you actually, from the information which we read on actually this Gamergate, one thing is actually an online campaign. Yeah, they actually campaign, and the form of campaign is actually harassment, and that is actually against women. And not only that, we actually saw that it had this misogynistic concept of view, which it actually champions. And that is actually important to notice. When you talk of 2016, we are going to have elections, which is going to be there between Trump and a woman. And if this Gamergate, they're actually campaigning or championing misogynistic campaign, which is the campaign against women, what do you think, or what do you think will be their relationship? Because to say, when you talk of the people actually fall under this part of Gamergate, like who champions these campaigns, from here, which one can you actually associate this game industry with? Joseph, is it libertarian? Is it atheism? Or men's activist, right? Yeah, so it's men's right activists. So you'd find that men's right activists, if we can actually see the ideologies and the concept which are actually here, and what they actually campaign for, you can actually see that it's actually pure mindset of this. But here are the people actually, even helps Trump actually to gain that popularity in order for actually him to win the 2016 election. So this is why I actually said, in order for Trump to actually win elections, it doesn't need just the vote of evangelicals, because evangelicals with the right wing is just actually a component, but there are other groups from this political spectrum which needs support, or which Trump needs support, and which to which also Trump also, Trump also is appealing to them. This is the reason why during this time period, we actually see this misogynistic campaign, which is Kamagate. It is actually a gaming industry, but they actually do this harassment on women and the like. And that is their focus of campaign. And it is actually important when you talk of 2016 election. This is the reason why they'll actually align themselves, the men's rights activists, with Trump, because they know to say the only figure who can actually like champion and push their agenda. There is no other than actually Trump. Yeah. And this is why they will actually support him. Yeah. If you talk of, you are a libertarian. Yeah. Maybe I ask this question. It should make sense if anyone has got another to eat. Yeah. And I want to learn this libertarian, which is here, these libertarians, we said it is actually philosophy, not so or ideology or principle or ideology, which is philosophy. Is it the same as this one? When I said we have actually the Trinity, the far right Trinity, where we see the libertarian, men's rights activists, and then atheism. And then we have this libertarian, which we looked at last time. Is it the same as this one? Yeah, it's a question. Yeah. So it's actually a question like this libertarian here. Yeah. Which falls under the trend of the far right. And the libertarian which we looked at last time, which is the ideology of the right wing. Is it the same? Regina, what was your answer? Regina is saying, yeah, it is actually the same. That is a thought. What? Ngabambi. Others, what are you saying? Joseph, Albert, Sharon. So even Sharon, she's saying even now she had the same question. So she wants to learn. I'm sure we are on the same page with Sharon. I want also to learn. Visibly, but I asked the question because I want to learn. So if there's anyone to help on that point, this libertarian which falls under the trinity of the far right and this libertarian as a philosophy, is it the same or what? Let us try to think and analyze. Yeah. Then if at all there is anyone with an answer, not now, but before the meeting ends, you can actually voice up your answer. It will really help us. Yeah, both you and me. Yeah, and actually everyone. Yeah, so this is why, yeah, when you talk of that Vox article, which actually was talking about the internet is full of men who hate feminism. It is actually under this Gamergate. Yeah, you know to say they are actually to actually champion this men's right mindset or ideologies. Yeah, and you know to say when you talk of men's right, their essence or their understanding or their motive or their ethos is actually one is everything that we study as you would say women, they have been the victims of abuse and men, they are perpetrators of that sexism, abuse and the like. With this, we just do the contrast. Everything that we say, women, they suffer. They'll actually say, no, it's not actually women who suffers. It's men. And this is the reason why, if you remember very well, I mentioned this area to say, when we are starting about issue to do with dowry, God wanted us to understand the sinfulness of that practice. But the issue is, if you are not careful, you actually go with this mindset here. Because even you say, the reason why I'm not in support of dowries is actually a burden to men. And when they say no dowry, even them, they don't believe in dowry. Men's right. They don't believe in that. And they fight against dowry, or bride price. And to actually see that they champion things which we also promote. But it is not. You actually find that their position and the reason why they say dowry is bad, and the reason why we say dowry is bad, is not the same. This is the reason why God is trying to understand, but to help us by all means to understand all this which is here. Because if you are not careful, you might think, if you would say that the Trinity maybe is here. If this is the Trinity, I'll just put 3 here representing the Trinity. And then area said we are here when God said we should move to this side. But you'd find that if you're not careful in what you promote, you'd find that God is telling you to move from here to come this side, but you find yourself moving from here, going where? To the far right. Yet you are telling yourself to say, no, I'm a feminist. I believe in equality. I am anti-dowry, all that. But you'd find that the ideologies which you are promoting, they are that of actually men's rights activists. Like the example I gave, you actually said, do you believe in dowry? No, I don't. It's actually bad. And someone also is a true feminist, you will be asked the same question, do you believe in dowry? They will say no. And then you'd say, these people, I'm sure they stand on the same ground. But when you are asked now the motive behind what has caused this person who is a men's rights activist to say dowry is bad, and what has caused someone who believed in radical feminism says dowry is bad, is it going to be the same reason, Joseph? It is going to differ. And this is why God is trying by all means to help us to understand, to say, just saying I'm making a switch, it doesn't make you to be saved. And it actually doesn't make you to actually live the right-wing ideology. Because remember, we have Protestants who left Europe. Physically, they left, but mindset remained in Europe. This is why later on, the thing that they fought against in Europe, they are the things which they started championing once America was established. And that is the same with Israel. They moved from Egypt physically, but their mindset still remains in Egypt. So it is the same here. You might say I've shifted to this side, but your mindset, your reasoning, it still remains where? Here. And you are not actually standing here. You are moving toward the far end, and you find yourself in the Trinity, championing the ideologies of action. And it's very dangerous because this one, when you talk of what they stand for, there are sometimes you'd actually see them like this example I've given. There are other examples which you can give. If they are sounding it and what they are saying, you'll be like, I found someone who is of my faith because they sound like you. But in reality, they stand here. And you are telling yourself to say you stand here, but you are actually having the same mind. This is the reason why I said you might shift that is theoretically, but practical. Where are you? You are here to the far right. So it's very important to understand the reason why God gave us this step to actually look on the broader view of the right wing. Is because God doesn't want us to be in this ignorance whereby we just say we made a shift, we just point on the surface, like I would say, just focusing on evangelicals to say no because of evangelicals' view of ABCD. Therefore, even me, I've shifted. I can no longer stand with evangelicals, while letting other groups which falls under the same political spectrum. And if we can do that, we are in danger of actually championing the ideas of the libertarian. This is the reason why over the issue of freedom, I'm sure it has been a hot issue in the movement. People always, they will do less fighting to say freedom, we learn about freedom and the like. But when that freedom, especially with people of rent equality, when they focus on freedom, you know, to say what they want is not that they want, I would say they are supporting the message. No, but they want their individual freedom to be protected in the name of equality. But in the real sense, it is not actually equality like the radical feminism principles which they are championing. But they are just like these people here. Yeah, Kaisa, you are late. I was hoping for people to join the meeting after 5 minutes, but we went beyond time. This is the reason why we had to resume the meeting, whilst the people that were not in the meeting, because I gave a caution, just 5 minutes for a break, then later on we come back, of which we went beyond time. Yeah, so we are still together. We haven't moved very far. We are still looking on the concept, like the Gamma Gate, and then the years 2014, 2015. Associated with it is the men rights activist mindset. Yeah, and the reason behind that is we are trying to understand this political switch, which we still have to understand why that shift was important and what actually the right wing as a whole, what do they stand for, the all of it, so that when we actually say we have shifted, we know to say we are not just saying we have shifted physically like the Israelites from Egypt, like the Protestants from Europe, but we are actually leaving everything that belongs here, and then we are fit to actually represent God's political party. And we actually gave an example to say, when you talk of men's rights activists, for example, if you're not careful, you might say the example I cited, and I'm doing this for the interest of those who have just rejoined. Yeah, we actually say we don't actually support like dowry. And then we have also men's rights activists, they also don't support that. And then if you are not careful, you might think you are safe because your stance on that subject is different. But when you actually understand to say there is also people who belong to the far right who actually don't support that system, that is where now we should actually know to say you are in danger. It is not about you accepting or saying you don't believe in that, but it's actually understanding the motive behind why you actually don't believe in that. Because we have other people who are actually against God's political party, but they still don't actually agree with our system. Yeah, so it's very important. This is the reason why I said, instead, you might think God has told you to shift to this side, and then you think you are shifting. Whilst you are actually moving from this point to the far end here, and you become you fall under this actually far right trinity, because the ideas that you'll be championing, it is that of far right, not that of God's political party. Yeah, and then from there, I also said, when you talk of freedom, God actually told us where freedom can be exercised and where equality should be, and equality in all things, like how that should actually look like, and how that should actually apply, whether on individual level or personal or political. Yeah, all that. Yeah, but I also mentioned or made a point to say, when you talk of people framing the equality, freedom in the concept of those who have rent equality in the movement, some they actually use it to justify their position on freedom. So they are libertarians, but they'll actually term themselves to say we stand for equality because we have understand or we have learned about the concept of freedom and also equality. Therefore, I'm standing for my freedom because equality should be actually protected. This is the reason why they'll make decisions also based upon freedom, but what they are championing is not the principles which governs God's government or God's political party, but is still that which actually the mindset of a libertarian. And this is actually the thing here. So we'll actually continue to discuss this, not now, yeah, but in actually future studies, so that we actually know why that is actually important. So libertarian is actually a broad aspect when you term it as a philosophy, because it is actually, how to say, it is actually the mindset which has actually taken over here. Yeah, of which, yeah, those who can read, yeah, I will just paraphrase something here. Yeah, comparing libertarian as a philosophy and also Republicans as a party. Yeah, you know, to say when you talk of Republicans from its inception, they have got their ideology which they stand for. And not only that, they have this version of how America should be. Yeah, and by so means, if it means campaigning and everything, they actually stick to that so that those ideas or those concepts which they know to say this is how America should look like, or this is how America should be, they are actually championed and they are preserved. Yeah, but surprisingly, what they have actually noticed since I would say from 2016 onward, yeah, in connection with all this, is actually the philosophy which has actually dominated the Republican Party. It's actually libertarian. And I'll actually lead something of which at your own time, you can actually lead that. Yeah, and this magazine, it was actually written by Chris, and he's actually a Republican. Yeah, he's a very supportive Republican person. Yeah, and he believes in Republican, but he started actually distancing, like he's supporting, not supporting Trump, because what he actually saw in Trump is there are some things which is actually coming in the Republican Party, which he thinks is not actually I would say the ethos of that political party. This is the reason why, if you go back, you'd actually find that there was the studies which we did about the paging of the Republican Party, and in other terms, I would say there was a civil war within that political party because of these ideologies and which one should actually dominate. So when you talk of Chris, there was a magazine which was titled The Libertarian Civil Rights Paradox. Yeah, so if you actually type and then you associate that magazine with Chris, which is titled The Libertarian Civil Rights Paradox, you actually find that Chris there is going to explain how that version of Republican has been dying progressively, and how libertarian as philosophy has been actually dominating the Republican Party to an extent where now it has actually become the sole center of Republican Party, like this philosophy, of which, for the interest of time, I'm sure we have the presenter who is going to teach this coming Sabbath. I'm sure that part will be touched. I won't lead that far. But what Chris has highlighted in his magazine is actually the idea to say, when you talk of how Republican was built and its principles and everything, slowly those principles, they have been phased out and they have been replaced with a libertarian philosophy. And we actually learned in the recent presentation what ideology, like philosophy, libertarian philosophy, how it looks like as an ideology or as a philosophy, not as a actually political party, because we moved from libertarian being a political party to actually it being a philosophy, and how broad that philosophy is when you talk of actually right wing, on the political spectrum. So I won't actually talk much on that, but we know to say this is important, to know and understand, because in whatever form or sense, we know to say God has actually given us a work to do. Though that work doesn't come according to our vision or expectation, because when God said there is a work which is entrusted in the hands of priests, we actually interpreted according to how we thought that work will happen. And I mean by what I mean by that is the work of the work which the priests have, like to do with Levites and also to do with the word. And you actually know to say that is actually the work which we had and which we have. And in order for us to show people to say where you are standing is not actually a safe place, we are the people first who needs to be corrected on this, on our political thinking, so that we know where we should actually stand. And then when we are cleared and then we have the full knowledge and full understanding on that, then we are actually going to direct men on the right side of the, or like which political party has the right principles which align with actually God's government. So that is actually important to us as priests to note. So we should actually know to say equality is actually the principle which governs God's government or God's political party. But beside the other political party, which I will just term as this right wing, there is actually these groups which champions their ideologies, which is freedom. And then there is actually a lot of things, and we just term that as this trinity. And in this trinity, there is a lot of concept in it, and we actually know to say whatever this stands for, I'm sure we'll actually come and learn more when you talk of atheism and what that means in reality. We'll actually see that all these three, all this trinity, which is the three libertarian, men's rights activists, and atheism, they whatsoever they champion, whatsoever they promote, they are actually not in line with God's political party. But you know to say, God is preparing our minds to say we meet such minds so that we can actually know how to handle such minds. I'm sure if you've been exposed much to understand this mindset, like the atheist and the like, they have got order. Like I remember, was it Joseph who was teaching about order, and then I asked him to say, does that order mean? I'm sure if my memory serves me right, that question which I posed to Joseph, to say they understand nature and they interpret nature based upon the idea. So you know to say with the atheists, they have got their view on how they perceive nature and also how they bring that in reality when you talk of human relationship. And they actually interpret to say this is a natural way on how things should be. And majority of the principles which they actually enforce, they are those which actually doesn't actually promote equality. So atheism, men's rights activists, and libertarian, yeah, who actually look on them one by one in the future studies, but we at our individual capacity, we can try by all means to actually have some ideas on actually this trinity. One by one, we expand the principles of the libertarian as part of Trinity and also men's rights activists and also atheism. And then after that, we weigh ourselves to say, do what I stand for and align with either of these three? And if yes, is my motive the same as theirs? Because like the examples I gave, there are some which would have the same mind or same standing, but that doesn't mean that we actually promote same thing. Just looking on the face value to voice same thing, to have the same voice doesn't mean that our motive behind what we are saying is the same. This is the reason why at the individual level, we should examine ourselves, checking if at all this trinity is not in our mind, like what we champion or our ideas of the vision of equality we promote. Yeah, that is one thing. And then we know to say it is within these libertarians, men's rights activists, and atheists where we actually see these militia groups, the mindset they have, it is all actually embedded in this trinity. This is the reason why when you talk of the January 6th insurrection, it was not some like Republicans who actually made that to happen. No, but we have actually these people with, and it's no longer like these aged people like the aged ones, but young people championing the ideologies of this trinity, and then they actually resulted into that actually activities which happened on January 6th. You know, to say there was actually the riot in the capital and then the refusal to elections, and all those people who actually stood on that day, you know, to say they all actually sympathized with actually Trump, because they knew to say if Trump can actually lose elections, they know where their future will be and how they actually, the principles which they champion, like freedom, how that is going to be threatened. Because we know to say when you talk of Democrats, which would say part of our principles, they align with Democrats because they fall under the left wing. But that doesn't mean that we are actual Democrats as a political party or their ideology. Yeah. Regardless, there is something that we support that they also support. When you shift to this side, we know to say there is also the work of sifting information from the left wing, because it is not everything that the left wing promotes which we also promote. This is the reason why, after understanding the right wing and what we should actually not participate in, even when we come here to the left wing, there's also that concept, that part of actually also how to say sifting or being selective in what to pick and what to choose. This is the reason why we actually add that part of you, which is navigating the complex, is trying to understand when you talk of on the left, does it mean that I should actually get everything that fall under the left wing? And that is not the case with the people who represent both political party. Yeah, so I'll actually end here and then I'll reserve the last remarks to myself before as I am allowing you to comment and express your thoughts. Then I'll actually close with my words. So those online, anyone with any comment, question, you can raise your hands so that I take note. Here also you can do the same. And like I said, if you are told there are those people still active on YouTube, you can also post those in that group there. So I have one hand here. Joseph. Okay, Joseph, who
And they know each other, they make change. Because we are saying bring power, they will kill, together they do each other, right? Each other when they are awake, they are about to get something with their ideology.
and that. Okay, so Joseph is asking, and the question is, since we have the Trinity, which we have seen as libertarian and then men's rights activists and then atheism. The question is, do this Trinity know each other? One, do they support each other in what they stand for? Yeah, I'm sure those are the two questions. Do they know each other? Do they support each other in what they stand for? And do they work together in actually promoting their ideology? Okay. So I'm sure that is now Joseph was just enlarged. I'm sure this is the question which part of it is actually the question which Gertrude also asked. Yeah, so indirect or direct, it is actually repeat and enlarge. Just single question. Regina. Okay, so that is the question from Joseph. Kaiser, do you have anything to say on that question?
Yes.
Yes, come on, please.
I think if they are on the same page, they can just fall under one group. Since we have 3 groups, it means they differ the way they understand and their ideology. Yeah, it's totally different. Though their goal is one, it is a freedom. So the angles or the areas to where they share is different.
They don't support each other.
And in certain areas, they don't support each other. This is what I can say.
Okay, so you have heard what Kaiser said. Kaiser said, looking at what they stand for, like libertarian men's rights activism and atheism, one point is actually they differ. Yeah, in what they promote. And then not only that, since they differ, to say, though they actually fall under same side, but there's one ideology which unites them, which is like you have been saying, they all fall under right wing and then they stand for freedom. But with what they promote, there's that common goal, which is that ideology which unites them. But there are other things which makes them to be different, meaning what it's not everything that the libertarian and an atheist promotes which will agree to each other. But why they are in this one basket, there is actually what I would say, I'm expanding what you said. What I would say, which is actually bringing them together, and that is actually just one principle, like we said, is equality, but on how that should be actually, I would say, being performed or shared, it's actually different. So they are one, but different.
So what the other part of
What do
they work together?
So one thing that, do they work together? I haven't started that one in the response I gave. What do you think?
Working together now, you know what working together.
That's why I'm asking.
Fair person, I
Okay. Yeah, so, okay. I'm sure Joseph is saying, do they work together? And he has given the example of Caiaphas and Herod. Yeah, you know to say that is the death of Christ. Yeah, so you know to say, if you bring them together, they don't actually align to each other like what they stand for. But there is a common ground which is uniting them, that is actually Christ, not so. So in what they stand for, there is that I would say differences, but what is bringing them together to fight is just one, which is to dwell with Christ.
What makes them well differently and stand for?
Okay, so if they can fight for one thing, what makes them to differ? On their, okay. Oh, that's a question again. Okay.
Okay, George. Yeah. What I can say is diversity under one umbrella. Like I can give an example. If we take civil right movement, yeah, the men's right, we have a different approach to that. Libertarian will have also a different approach according to what they stand for. Atheism, again, they will have a different. So they can fight one thing, but in different corners.
Okay, so now question, which is, that's where the question is coming to say, does that mean they work together?
No.
If we, yeah, in one way we can say they work together, though not in one basket, because they are fighting one thing, but in different platforms.
Okay.
Like the example he gave you, whereby we have maybe in time of Christ, we have the Pharisees, we have the Sadducees. They differ widely. But when it came to Christ, each one is against Christ in a certain way. So they are not together in one boat. But it is us to say they are one because they are fighting one thing. But to them, they don't agree that they should go and fight that one. No.
So, meaning, okay, if I get you correct, of which this is to everyone now. So if you are saying, I'm sure, let me maybe take our thoughts a bit and then we come back. When we say the underlying ethos of the right wing is freedom, so say every one of them here stands for, believes and stands for freedom. Not so. But when you get a republic or a Republican person and then a libertarian, every one of them will stand for freedom. You bring them together. Are they going to be numb to each other?
No.
They are not going to be numb to each other. But again, we are
Yes.
saying both of them, they believe in what? Freedom. I'm sure that's where now we should get it again here. So the issue is all these, what is actually putting them together? Like we said, it is the underlying ethos of the right wing, which is actual freedom. But when we
They-
actually now zoom in, or we actually now go on the complex level to understand how that actually looks like, you'd find that there is that actually differences again within the very same people who prioritizes freedom. I'm sure that's what I'm getting. Joseph.
From the title of the subject is saying this. People government we say whatever harassment on that and who was involved there, it's name. In that book you say it's men. Is it just men's right activists or even those three was there? Was united to do in certain things and women in Gamake. And you go to January 6, you just see one group who rioted there. If they not see each other, they were not working toward one. And are they not on the same side?
There. Sorry. Yes, so making out the conclusion of what you said.
So question answer I thought I say is carrying a meat.
I mean, this is carrying weight. Yeah, so okay. So Joseph is saying, yeah, we are when we go back to our study or the title of our study, we know to say it's actually titled From Gamagate to January 6. And what we are trying to understand when you talk of Gamagate, it is actually these elections focused on actual 2016 election and what happened prior to that due to that campaign and the harassment on Clinton and all that. You know to say it worked much to influence the people on actually the gender part of Clinton and the like. Yeah. And when coming to 2020, January 6, it is also attached with elections. All that riot which was happening there, it is actually on the subject of election. And then Joseph is saying, when you talk of Gamagate, we actually said we have actually men's rights activists who actually would say they are the champions who actually fight against women's rights. And they are the one who actually found in that gaming industry, which is there to discredit women. And then in January 6, we have actually many again who are there actually fighting. And we are not only seeing like, I would say we are not only seeing like libertarian people with the, is it like a libertarian philosophy? And we actually see a lot of groups there like Proud Boys and other people and other groups there. And now the question Joseph said was, if we can see that people present there because they know each other, are they not actually fighting together, like fighting for a common goal and they are together fighting for that? And can't we actually see that they are working together? And if yes, then that goes in actually contrast, yeah, to what we said previously, yeah, of which that is Joseph. So from what I can say is, yeah, with what we said earlier and what Joseph stated, I don't see any contradiction, but we are actually just adding on the thought which we already established. Yeah, and what we can actually see is both Gamergate and January 6, yeah, we have actually these people stood and they are all engineered on based upon the Trinity. Yeah, this is the reason why when you talk of Proud Boys, their mindset is all infiltrated on the ideologies of actually the Trinity. This is actually the representation of the Trinity. It is actually seen in these far-right militia groups. And those are the people which rose on January 6th to actually fight back on those elections. Yeah, so I'm sure that's what I can say. Yes. So, Joe, have you gotten anything there?
Trump, but when it comes to I am very patriotic because when it comes to us, that Matthew, their theology now, the philosophy that become like a philosophy, like those can have the mind be against Amorites, at the same time, that is patriarchy. Even atheism, they promote patriarchy because they don't consider women to be human completely. If you go back to Charles Darwin. And at the same time, that's the libertarianism whereby fighting for freedom, which freedom? Yeah, it's not freedom for like we have learned that the freedom we have era. Yeah, so we in there that Lokuba part to Lokuba. Next when on the point here, Trinity, then once every right to me. You're looking for the example, somebody come again, then January 6th. We'll see those prayers. Whether it comes in the form of the issues about women's rights, you will see those prayers. Because they all believe in that this is a threat to us. When it comes like pre-January 6th, you will see all those prayers. Oh.
Okay. Yeah, so the conclusion thought from Joseph is when you talk of Gamergate and then January 6, what you can actually see when you talk of Gamergate being a misogynistic group or the ideologies which they promote, it is actually the same thing when you talk of atheism. They actually promote patriarchy. They don't actually support equality like women's rights and the like. They see that as a threat to them also. That's why when you talk of their nature and the view they have this patriarchy view on nature, which actually allows them to have this version of actually patriarchy still fighting against anything to do with equality. Same with men's rights activists, with libertarians, even when they talk of freedom and the like, it's not actually a concept which they actually generalize to everyone. Yeah, this is the reason why under the Trinity, we can actually see the Trinity in Gamergate and also the Trinity also in January 6th. And that is actually the concept which is actually bringing and these events together, like when you talk of Gamergate and also January 6th installation. Yeah, I'm sure that is it. So if there is any thought that needs to be furthered on this subject, the week is still here. Yeah, we have a new week, the full week. We can actually revisit the study, develop other concept. As we come this coming Sabbath, we should actually bring those thoughts, as we are going to have another preacher or another presenter is going to take over to further more and to repeat and enlarge on what we have learned today. Yeah, so for now, I'm sure we'll end here. Yeah, and then we'll actually progress with the same study. Yeah, next Sabbath. We are praying. Lord God, we thank you for the blessings that you've given us this time to understand the politics, which is salvation. Help us, Lord, to know where we stand in this politics so that we can actually collectively represent your political party. May you continue enlightening our thoughts even as we are in the Sunday law period, that the overcast, the light you are giving us should continue shining upon our path so that we may not lose focus. Let your Holy Spirit lead us. Let your holy angels strengthen us. Those who have actually backslided, let the past and the present be their shield and their hope of the future, because we can only fear the future if we actually forget the way you have led us in our past eastly. May you continue strengthening us, helping us to actually continue understanding your character, that we may be able to imitate your behavior, to become who you are, to love what you love and hate what you hate. We thank you for the blessing of the Sabbath. Continue to be with us even as we pray for lunch. May you be with us even as we come back in the afternoon. May your blessings continue to abide with us through this Sabbath and the days to come. This is our humble prayer. In your name, Lord, we pray. Amen. Yeah, so anything to announce, I'm sure, but the reader is here, Joseph. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. So camp meeting is still on. Yeah, and the people with funds, I'm sure we should actually finish those who haven't paid. We have a few days remaining. And the venue is in Ndeke Village Reviewed Treasure School, opposite Stemweni. Yeah, that is just at the junction there. Those who have been in Ndeke Village, they know that area. So you should actually communicate. Let us keep connected in those groups where we have been assigned and the figures and everything. Let us try to actually contribute with whatever we can manage. Yeah, so that when that time comes, I'm sure it will be actually, according to our expectation. I'm sure this is all. See you at 15 hours, for afternoon program. Thank you. So 14:45, the meeting room will be open. People can start joining for 14:50, somewhere there. The meeting room will be open so that we start the song service and then later on we enter into the main session. Yeah, so see you there.